What happened? Welcome back to the CONVO Couch, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pastor Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
So we have a great story for you today. We just got done with a whole week of our KDM coverage, and we're going to dive right back into it. We have a leaked audio from POMPEO about Venezuela. And fam, I think this is the turning point. Let's take a listen.
Pompeo has been caught making some comments about Venezuela that were not intended for the primetime viewers. Apparently, he's not sure who would replace Maduro if his regime change efforts are successful.
This has been our conundrum, which is to keep the opposition united has proven devilishly difficult. The moment Maduro leaves, everybody's going to raise their hand that says, take me, I'm the next president of Venezuela. There'll be 40 plus people who believe they're the rightful heir to Maduro.
All right, fam. So that really is a big thing. I think that signifies almost the end, hopefully, of this conflict because there is no opposition. The regime change failed. And I'm also looking for this guy to get fired. I just want to throw that in there. It's time to fire this asshole right here, Lord Bolton. Pompeo needs to go. Abrams needs to go. And the funny thing about it is, fam, it was not in the mainstream media. Only RT and TYT covered it. So, I mean, just to start off.
So you're saying that there is no... Because I still feel like they're talking about the coup as it's this thing that's still happening, that it's still going to happen. So you're saying that there is no coup anymore. It's done. It's failed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, it's going to be major unpopular to the United States people, even for the people on the right who do support Donald Trump blindly. There is no opposition. So there is no coup itself to take over the country itself, and that means it's going to go batshit crazy. If he says there's 40 people raising their hands, they don't have an opposition. The best thing they can do is pull the hell out. And I think that you're going to continue to see Abrams, Bolton, Pompeo. They're going to try to gaslight Donald Trump and say, no, we can still do this. We can still get him out. We can still get a hold of that oil. I don't see it now whatsoever. But the most important thing, what we have to do is as progressives right now, is we have to start a full blitzkrieg to lift the sanctions now. I put that up there, hashtag lift the sanctions now, because we have to understand one thing, fam. Who do the sanctions hurt?
Well, they hurt the Venezuelan people.
The poor people. Mm-hmm. They don't hurt the upper class.
Oh, no.
They don't hurt the middle class. They hurt the poor people. When Bill Clinton put sanctions on Iraq, I think they said 1 million children died because he restricted them getting medical care and put all these sanctions on them. And it hurts the most vulnerable people. But we've also placed, remember, here's where we placed sanctions. Number one, in their banking abilities. They can't use their banking anywhere. I got some articles up here too as well. They can't use their bankings anywhere. Remember when we did on this show right here, we were talking about sanctions. We talked about how Maduro wanted to get malaria medicine for an outbreak in the Amazon, but he couldn't get it from Colombia because the sanctions restricted so. He wanted to get insulin from Canada, but the sanctions didn't allow him to even just hit a button, fam, and transfer that money over there. So those really hurt the poor. Then we did the gold sanctions. We seized their gold. Right now, Deutsche Bank has over, I think it's 20 tons of gold seized. Maduro, Venezuelan people, the people of Venezuela's gold is seized. And then we hit them hard, fam, on their greatest resource on oil. So those three things, we have to lift the sanctions now. Because if we don't do it, fam, and I want you to kind of talk a little bit about this too, if we do not lift the sanctions, these people are going to show up on our doorstep, are they not?
Right. This is all a result of our U.S. interventionism. We've talked about it numerous times. We force these people to get to a state where they have no choice but to leave their homeland, which is what's happening with Venezuela. Then these people go and they come into the United States or into neighboring countries. And of course, they're not even entirely aware of the whole situation. They're victims. But this is what causes the influx of immigration. So if I'm a right-wing conservative person that wants to keep people out of America because we don't have jobs here and et cetera, people here are already suffering, I'm going to want a non-interventionist president. Regardless of whether they're a leftist or a person on the right, you're going to want a non-interventionist person because they're going to keep you away from these wars and also focus inside on our infrastructure.
Yeah, you hit it right on the nose. Even if you are a right-wing person, that's what you're going to want, right? You want the wall. You want immigration control, whatever. We can argue about the reasons of left and right. But what we want And especially I think there's some progressives like ourselves. The reason why we are so batshit crazy from Tulsi is because she's so concentrating on these regime wars. And this is a big thing because we fund these wars. We have to deal with the problems of these wars. And it's just costing us money. We can't have nice things because we're supporting these wars. And that leads me to my next point, fam, about these wars. Because TYT and RT were the only ones that cover it. The mainstream media, you don't hear pretty much nothing about this. And it's disgusting. Why? Because most of your Democratic candidates were for regime change or were for interference. Only Yang, who made a kind of blanket statement, Gravel, Bernie, and Tulsi were against it. And I really hate the way that TYT, and I'm not doing this, fam, to just pick on them, whatnot, but we got to call this shit out. Okay, because you can't frame it in a certain way. And TYT did the same thing that the mainstream media does all the time. AKA, but Trump. This is a Trump problem. We got to get rid of Trump because of this. Hello, Obama, Syria, Libya, Honduras, anybody?
Hillary, yeah.
Hillary, I mean, the whole 9 yards. You want to digress to this? We have Anna saying this stuff on the TYT. Look what she says right here about this whole thing.
This is exactly the reason why, in addition to a host of terrible domestic policies, we need to get these people elected out, right? I mean, of course, we didn't elect Pompeo and Bolton, but I'm talking about the Trump administration. We need to elect them out. If you care about stopping regime change wars, Trump's got to get out. And I'm just happy that they've failed so far.
So there you go. If you want to get rid of regime change, you got to get rid of Trump because Obama didn't, like we talked about the 3 places, Honduras, Syria, Libya. That was all Obama. Trump has flirted with it, fam. And I don't want Trump in office either. I want Bernie, Tulsi, a real progressive and stuff. But let's just take a look at Anna Kasparian's dream candidate on one of our Venezuelan tapes on how she felt about regime change. But then, I saw this on Elizabeth Warren.
We provide humanitarian aid. We make it clear that we know that Maduro is a dictator and does not have our support. We join our allies in supporting the opposition. We do not threaten military.
Okay, so can I say something?
Horrible.
Anna's right. I mean, we need to get Trump elected out of office. She's entirely right that he is part of the symptom of the problem. However, getting rid of Trump and putting someone in that's still going to cause us and allow us to go into these regime change wars is not going to solve the problem at all. That is a Band-Aid solution. We have a dying person and you're putting a Band-Aid on them. That's not going to resolve the issue. And Elizabeth Warren is someone that I used to love, really, like look up to her. And like, she just keeps disappointing me and disappointing me and disappointing me. And she's by far not a terrible candidate in comparison to what we have there. But the only people that are anti-interventionist candidates and that are high enough in the polls, or not even in the polls, but have so much people support, are Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. Those are the only 2 people who have actually said we don't need to intervene in Venezuela. Tulsi, above everybody, was saying from the get-go, we need to stop going into these countries. This is causing problems inside our country. We cannot use the idea of the Trojan horse, right? The humanitarian aid. We're going to bring in humanitarian aid. It's all bullshit. We know very much what that means when they say humanitarian aid. If we cared about humanitarian aid, we would have gone into Yemen a long time ago and helped those people out. We don't do that. We don't care. We don't care about the Syrians. We don't care. We just care about the oil and the gold and the money that we get from these wars. And the only people that go there to die are the poor people, both out over there in these countries and also within our own countries.
Fam, you hit it so much on the nose, too, and I'm going to even go a step further. I'm going to say this. Elizabeth Warren, and I've been on the fence. I said if Elizabeth Warren's the nomination and she earns it somehow, I don't know how that can happen, I would consider voting for her. I mean, I'm a definite hard no on Biden. I'm a hard no on Kamala. I keep saying this, but I would. Elizabeth Warren is awful, fam. Awful on foreign policy. Awful. And that makes a difference out there. For all you progressives who think we can just fix things domestically and we don't have to worry about things foreign policy-wise, first of all, I think that's somewhat like kind of like, is he ignoring race issues? Because aren't we bombing brown people all over this fucking world?
Yeah.
It's really disgusting. We don't have to worry about that. And if you just see in her statement, Maduro's a dictator. We're going to join our allies, and supporting the Venezuelan people is code for we're going to support our imperialistic fucking friends, Britain and France, and we're going to stand with the people who are opposing the real democracy within those countries. Johnny, you got anything to say about this? We've been talking about this, no? Tsunami knows. We've been talking. He doesn't got nothing to say, but fam, that's all I got to say. I really want to, and the way TYT framed it, the way, and Anna doesn't even say, she goes, who's number one in regime change? She doesn't even give Tulsi her due. Okay, this is why I say that check had to have some effect on what they're doing at TYT. You don't even talk about the number one person on regime change. Like on regime change, you're not going to at least give it to Tulsi. You could talk about all this other shit about Tulsi. Forget whatever you want.
We
We're
will
going to get into that
in a minute.
But you're not going to even give the woman props on regime change. That's her number one fucking plan. Her number one issue is ending these regime change war. Because why? It will slow down the migration process that all you libertarians and Donald Trump fans want. That's what fam said. And two, we got to stop killing people and spending money, because that's why we can't have nice things. And let me tell you something. If we stand still on this right now, we lose. We need to lift the sanctions now. Lift the sanctions now. Let the Venezuelan people go about their democracy in peace. Let them prosper on their own without the interference of America for once in our fucking life.
And just so you guys know, independents and libertarians and Republicans are very important even in the primary. The Democratic Party, and I said this before, is in an echo chamber. They think that they are the only ones that exist, and they see this as, oh, well, Warren is okay, and like she can win, she can get us some of these centrist votes. The centrist votes don't matter as much as you think they do. The centrist votes are only a small fraction of the people. The majority of Americans are independents.
That's it.
And the majority of them, if you give them a reason to vote, they will vote. But if you give them another similar establishment candidate, though much better than the rest, still part of the same system that led to Donald Trump's election, they're just going to tune out and they're not going to vote. And you're going to end up, even if Elizabeth Warren gets the primary, she's going to lose to Donald Trump. And it is because I want Donald Trump out of the White House so bad that I don't think she's a strong enough candidate to win both the general and the primary. And there are only two people that could win the primary, or that I think can win the general, but I think right now Bernie Sanders is the strongest candidate to win both. And that is one of the reasons why it's such a tactical thing. And I say right now because we haven't seen the debates, and Tulsi's popularity is rising, and I do see her as kind of like the underdog that people haven't really gotten to know and are underestimating. And I'm going to go into why in a minute.
Yeah, I think, too, I think that anybody can win the primaries in the Democratic Party because, as we saw this last week and everything we've been talking about, we concentrated on the election integrity within the Democratic Party, and it's still not there. I mean, there's a video of me and David Atkins. I want to send props to David Atkins for coming on with me. Go ahead and take a look at our YouTube. And we talked about the process, and we're going to continue to talk more. We've been talking to James Alaya. He wants to come back on the show to explain this process, which it's still, in essence, a form of a super delegate or a pleo, whatever. And then, we don't even talk about some of this stuff when people text us, fam, because they don't want it getting out and stuff, and the backdoor deals and the bullying that goes on. Yeah. It's not a system for the people. And California comes off as this big progressive type of, a party, but they're not. They're controlled by centrists. And once again, fam, those centrists within the party are a small amount of people. You can't win without those libertarians, those independents, and there's only certain people who can get them because they're not going to win with this whole butt Trump situation. And we heard it again, right? Somebody gets on stage, Kamala Harris. If you did a shot every single time she said Trump, you're done.
Yeah, all of them. Every single one of them, besides, the candidates I've mentioned. So
let's get into the other stuff because...
my stuff?
Yeah, because I want to say that Tulsi's bae. Right? Tulsi's so bae.
Tulsi's bae, but
she's so anti-regime change, and that's what makes her so bae to me.
She's getting a lot of support from independents and people on the right because she's not focusing on labels and focusing on the actual policy and issues, which can be controversial to some leftist, socialist friends of mine who, we like to hear the word socialist. But I don't hold it against her because the actions she's taking are actually fairly exactly in line with what Bernie Sanders is doing, by the way. So let me talk a little bit about the smears, because as she is rising, because she is, you may not see it in the polls because the polls don't poll independents and Republicans and progressives. They poll older 50 and up people who are part of
With
the Democratic
landlines.
Party with landlines. Like, they're not polling the right people. But apart from the Tulsi, that she's rising, we see a rise in smears. We see the mainstream media both, and even the quote unquote progressive media going after her. And so
Anna, when you say quote unquote progressive,
well, because the word has
the
gotten
most
diluted.
progressive mainstream media show.
The most popular progressive mainstream media show. So Tulsi Gabbard, of course, she is a progressive, actually. And so Anna Kasparian made a tweet that was completely wrong, saying that she voted, that she was against the consumer protections, when in actuality, for a while, Tulsi has been against weakening consumer protections. I don't know if she read it wrong or whatever the case was, but that was a complete lie. And she went on and bashed Tulsi for that, to which she got severely corrected for on Twitter by many people. And then she also put out a debunked article by Fox Business.
Oh, yes.
Which, first of all, it's Fox Business. I don't know why you're sharing this, but she said just because candidates claim they're not accepting PAC money doesn't mean they don't get corrupted Wall Street's individual donors. Biden, Buttigieg, Gabbard hit Wall Street for money despite class warfare rhetoric. This is entirely untrue as far as Tulsi goes, and I'll tell you why. Basically, it's entirely untrue. That didn't happen. So Tulsi did have an event this past week, and she had 3 events. And I'm going to go through them now. So this is Tulsi's response to Anna Kasparian. We know it's Anna, and you'll see why. She said, I'm happy to be in NYC holding 3 events this week. A meet and greet hosted by our campaign on Saturday at 11, June 8th. Project Farmhouse, 78 East Street, 13th Street, East 13th Street. A fundraiser at Dr. Raj Baihani's home, a well-known Brooklyn-based surgeon. And a breakfast conversation. She said, hosted by Omid Malik. As is clear from the invitation sent out, I do not accept money from PAC lobbyists. Some in media are apparently upset by the fact that there are business people in NYC who are against warmongers and support my message of ending regime change wars, the new Cold War, and numerous arms race. By the way, I would love to have millionaires and billionaires join this campaign and use their money for good, not evil. Maybe that's what they're upset about.
Fam, I like my bagel toasted with a nice schmear right on top of it and stuff like that. I mean, they're just trying to frame this lady, try to point out this lady, and we can see once again the hypocrisy. We just showed you the video of Anna Kasparian talking about Venezuela, blaming it on Trump, not holding any of the Democrats accountable, and not even pointing out the #1 candidate on regime change. I would have had a lot of props for Anna if she said, you know what, I'm not a big Tulsi Gabbard supporter, but the other Democrats, including Bernie Sanders, need to follow her lead on regime change because this is bad. But did she? No.
And let me kind of go over this. I was at San Francisco for the KDM convention, so with Pasta, as you all know, and Bernie Sanders had a fundraiser there. Initially, he was charging $100 a ticket. Later on, they lowered it to $27, which is much more reasonable. Tulsi, on this fundraiser, she wasn't charging anything until it got full. And then they were charging. But it wasn't anywhere near what people are thinking when they see Wall Street, blah, blah, blah. This guy, by the way, I'm going to tell you guys who he is. So Omid Malik is a Muslim with a Pakistani father and an Iranian mother who sued Bank of America for $100 million for discrimination and won. So he has no ties to Bank of America. And so because he sued Bank of America, he's one of these people that is against the corruption of big banks.
Yep.
And he's actually kind of a sort of activist in his own realm. And here's the thing, we do have people in this movement who are wealthy and who throw money out there who help out. Susan Sarandon is one of them. Susan Sarandon has donated both to Bernie's campaign and Tulsi's campaign, by the way. And so the idea that she is somehow now having Wall Street donors is entirely false. It was out of context and manipulated in order to smear, once again, this candidate that is such a threat to the mainstream media, to the establishment and to the military-industrial
Most
complex,
importantly.
even being a veteran herself.
Yeah. Yep.
So I wanted to actually go over to what actually happened in this whole meeting and the things Tulsi was talking about in not only an interview but in a forum sort of set where people could ask questions.
Which is important.
So we have the first clip right here. Here is, by the way, I almost forgot to point out, she is extremely popular. These are the lines that we have for Tulsi in New York
They're
for
just
this
growing
event.
and growing and
this
growing.
is just for the beginning event, the meet and greet.
Yep.
And that's a picture of the line and what it looks like. And that's here's the other one where she goes through and she's saying hi to people. Did you want to play it for a little bit? Just play it for a little bit.
Alia.
I just want to hug you. You are so wonderful and we so appreciate everything you're doing. It's really beautiful.
I appreciate you guys.
How are you?
Hi. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Such a difference.
You mean the world to us.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you so much for your patience. We're getting the first group in. I'm going to talk to them for a few minutes, and then we're going to get the next group in. So thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll get you guys
get a
inside
question
quickly. I hope so too.
Look at Daddy. She's so pretty at home.
Hi. We'll see you guys inside in a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Hey, Johnny, didn't you say something the other day about Tulsi? Didn't you say she always hugs people and gives people high fives and talks to people and stuff? We see that in almost every single thing that Tulsi's doing. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, nobody else does that other than Bernie. And here's the thing, a lot of people went to the convention and they were saying, oh, she's not popular at all. That's because her supporters weren't allowed in, because we were there and we had our passes to go in. Her supporters, the majority of them aren't even part of the Democratic Party. And a lot of them they're not political people necessarily and pundits of types. So they were stopped at the door and we went in.
Yeah.
And so when people say she has no support, I have to laugh because clearly she has a hell of a lot of support.
It's
and
growing.
this reminds me of Bernie Sanders. I remember the lines for Bernie Sanders. I remember the support and how people were excited about him and the momentum. She is a Bernie of right now because she is now the underdog.
Yeah.
If you're understanding what I'm saying. And as Bernie supporters, we should all come together and not necessarily, that's why I really haven't attacked Elizabeth Warren. I only point out the things that are lacking in her policy. And with Tulsi, though, I feel like her and Bernie are extremely similar, and they're coming from the same ideals of running because they feel like they have to, not because they want to be president. And she's talked about this numerous times. She's not running because she had this dream of being president one day. She's running because she sees there needs to be more of an impetus as far as the regime change wars and everything else. So that's precisely why she's running. And I wanted you guys to see that, because a lot of what you hear in the media is there's no support, it's small rooms, and that's just not the case.
Yeah.
And you're not seeing that translated on the polls yet, because if you look back when Bernie was Bernie back in 2015 and 2016, you didn't see him polling either. He started at 2%. Same as Tulsi.
Yeah. Can I say something too? I think the attacks that were on Tulsi Gabbard today are almost similar to the ones they were on 2016. They're attacking him the same way. The mainstream media, which is the lapdog of the military-industrial complex, they're all pro-war, from New York Times to MSNBC, who hires Brian Williams and their beautiful weapons. They are attacking Tulsi almost identical. They are batshit crazy. And she's just getting out there, and more people are hearing her word, and more people who are turned off by this Democratic Party. And even in California, it was kind of just seeing, Christine Pelosi talk about how the Democratic Party is. More and more people are turned off. They're looking at people, outsiders, and they are really resonating with Tulsi Gabbard. And she stays away from those labels like democratic socialism, which is another whole group of people that she can get in to bring into the process to vote for her in the primary, as well as the general down the way. And that's why I think it's just crazy with some of these progressives going, oh, they're just hating on Tulsi. It's no, she's the only candidate we know that if and when she does drop out, she would go, here you go, Bernie, because he's the most like them.
And she's done it before. I can't expect Warren to do this again.
Yeah.
And so real quick, Johnny, I want to point out this tweet by Sarah Ewell Weiss, who went to the event. She said event number 2 is underway for people who waited outside through event number 1. And then she said there were so many people for the venue, so they had to split the event into 2 smaller ones to accommodate the larger group. This is not fake. I'm not making this up, and I'm not doing this just because I really like Tulsi. I'm doing this because I want people to know the truth, and people aren't getting the truth. They're getting half-truths and complete lies. So that's why we're here. And so let's go ahead and show exactly what some of the things that Tulsi was talking about at this fundraiser. The first one in order. Yeah.
You think they're getting it wrong, and I think the media has such an incredible responsibility to report news and the truth, and that's just not what we see anymore. You know, we see opinions, we see panels of people on all the news channels, I don't care which one you watch, sharing their opinions. You know, you can agree or disagree with their opinion, but in all of that, the facts and the news are lost. You know, me and my campaign, we've been on the receiving end of very intentional smear efforts trying to undermine our campaign, coming through, you know, NBC News, quoting articles that are completely baseless. Not just like, hey, you got a couple of things wrong in that. No, completely baseless. And you know, I did an interview with George Stephanopoulos. He's like, well, you know, this article in the Daily Beast says Putin supports your campaign. Based on what? Nothing. Really, nothing. Because I have 3 donors out of nearly 80,000 who, like me, 3 Americans, I hate that I have to say that, but 3 American donors, Susan Sarandon, one of them, Professor Stephen Cohen, another, both of whom are outspoken as I am, saying we need to de-escalate tensions between the United States and nuclear-armed countries like Russia and China, because otherwise we are headed down a path that inevitably takes us to nuclear war. Let's figure out how we work with other countries rather than continuing this path of conflict. End regime change wars. They're saying the same things that I'm saying about the dangers of nuclear war. And because of that, they, and therefore I, am labeled as a Russophile and a supporter of Putin. It's just ridiculous.
She's a Russian.
Okay, so I kind of
want. She's a Russian. Blow her up.
I want to. That was a really good impression.
Sorry.
I kind of want to comment on that because that is what they're doing now. Anytime you kind of move away from the established narrative of no, Russia bad, you know, Putin bad, they're like, you are Russian bot, you are Putin's puppet, you support our enemies, you're an Islamophobe. They're gonna paint it or turn it around like you're a conspiracy theorist. I don't know how many times I've been called that just because I don't follow the narrative. I think for myself. I am an independent thinker. I am an independent. Like, I am registered as a Democrat to vote for one of these 2 candidates, and that's it. Like, because I care about what they have to say, because I believe in them, because I believe in Bernie Sanders, I believe in Tulsi Gabbard, I believe in what they're saying. They're they're one of the few good things in the Democratic Party, besides the Ocasios and the Rashidas that are incoming. Those are our victories that we have. But if we hadn't gone outside the established narrative, we wouldn't have the movement we have now. And we need to stop doing that. Like, hearing something and then automatically going, oh yeah, she met with Assad, she's pro-Assad. Like, no, we need to continue questioning, assess the situation, think logically, and not let these ideas that are pretty much implanted in our brains through everything surrounding us dominate our thinking.
Yeah, well, it's so disgusting where the establishment has gone on this. They've demonized Russia and demonized Russia and Putinized Russia. Wait, they've demonized Russia and Russianized Putin. So Putin's become the number one enemy. And the whole thing is that I thought the president since John F. Kennedy, or since we dropped that H-bomb, the number one job of the president is to keep us out of war with Russia. And the fact that the Democratic establishment is so willing to go this kind of jostling with this third world war mentality just because they lost the election and to blame Russia, it's disgusting. And this is one of the reasons why Tulsi Gabbard is my candidate. We need to bring down tensions with Russia. We keep flirting with Russia. There's stuff going on with jets in the Baltic states flying close to each other near the seas. We're jostling back and forth in the seas with our warships right now. We're just a click away from nuclear holocaust, and yet the Democratic Party still puts up this rhetoric. People like Adam Schiff, they need to go. People like Nancy Pelosi, they need to go. We got to fucking get our shit together and get these warmongers out of our legislation.
And here is a little clip that Nico cut up, a small one, where she says something really savage that all of you guys need to hear.
Smart. That's why she's my bae right here.
Is statements made by different leaders in Congress have been all about the political calculation, which for me, for everyday Americans, are like, that. Seriously, I'm sick and tired of you guys playing politics. Talk about what's real.
And in here, she's referencing.
Wow.
She's referencing. This is after she was asked about impeachment. She's referencing how she's sick of people just of these politicians playing football, basically, and we get lost in the process. The American people get lost in the process. They're just playing games with each other with political theater, and they're not actually presenting viable solutions towards our economic and foreign issues that we're dealing with every single day. So she had no qualms about cursing and saying that, and I think it's that. I mean, that is how I feel. 100%.
She's calling out a lot of people on the left too, as well. This is not like she's not speaking to the right side, the Republicans and Fox News. She's speaking to people within her own party too, as well. The mainstream media within her own party. Yeah. Enough is enough. This political fucking football. And I love the fact that she got the endorsement from Joe Rogan. I love the fact that she's speaking to the people, and her crowds are just growing and growing and growing. Keep attacking, because it's only going to make Tulsi stronger. And
that's the same reason why she has the stance she has regarding a few other things, including impeachment. So here is at 20 minutes, Jonathan, if you can just play it. She's going to talk about money.
We're seeing are starting to demand that of their candidates for Congress, of the U.S. Senate. That's really the way that we change the influence, because then there's no question about who you're accountable to. I mean, I could tell you a ton of stories about people who I know in Congress who are running, big campaigns. They record a TV ad saying what they really want to say about how pharmaceutical drug prices are increasing at exponential amounts, hurting sick people. They play the ad, and some of their big pharma PAC contributors say, nope, you're not gonna show that ad in public. You got to re-record it.
Wow.
And they did. Because, hey, they're funneling $1 million into this super PAC that's going to help run negative ads against their opponent, and they need that money to be able to win. But this is exactly what's wrong. This is what's wrong with this system. We've seen in the
So
wow. I'm so sorry. Let me get that back up for you. But yeah, this is you right here. But
okay.
Wow. I mean, the fact that she said that she exposed him is like, no, you're not going to run that ad. You're going to rerun this other ad, and they have to go back and do it, because why? They're their benefactor.
She's other than Bernie Sanders, who I know has exposed this before. She's the only other one talking about this, and she's being blunt. I mean, she's literally telling you things that she's not supposed to tell you, right? I mean, and she made this video public on her YouTube, by the way. So this isn't some video that only I had access to or anything like that. She made this video a publicly viewed video, so you knew what was being discussed over there, because people are like, oh, the back room. No, like this is what she's talking about. She's talking about, what are you doing?
The gloves are off, fam. Tulsi's taking the gloves off fucking early, man. I can't even wait for these debates, but I'm going like this, fam, because she's like, fuck that shit. The gloves are off. Yeah. Let's do this. I'm going to speak for the people. I'm going to speak for peace.
I'm going to expose
what are you gonna
the
do?
Corruption in our system.
Oh.
And I have no qualms about doing that.
Boom.
And that is one of the things that progressives love about these candidates, certain candidates that just do that. And she's savage. Okay,
she
so
is savage.
This is about impeachment, and a lot of people want to impeach Trump. A lot of people, and I get where they're coming from. I'm going to talk a little bit about this. And here it is at 23 minutes and 29 seconds. She talks about impeachment.
Happen. The Senate's not going to cooperate. But if we do our jobs in the House where the budget originates, where these appropriations bills originate, that's ultimately the power that Congress has.
Do you favor impeachment?
I think that ultimately, if we think about what's best for the country, impeachment will further tear our country apart. I think it's important for the country to defeat Donald Trump in 2020 and to make our case to voters to make that decision. So there's no question, there's no doubt about the direction the American people want to go in this country. Otherwise, in my view, we're just going to keep relitigating us versus them that began in 2016, and it's not going to do anything in helping us actually address whether it's foreign policy, healthcare, all of these domestic issues that really are impacting people in their everyday lives. And that's something that really struck me as I've been out on the road for the last several months in the early states. And
Do you need this paper anymore?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
So if you guys notice, she gives a very valid reason for not going into impeachment. This is what I've been saying all along. I know Pasta has been saying it too. Impeachment is only going to rile up Donald Trump's base.
Yeah.
It's only going to make him the victim in their eyes.
Yeah.
It's only going to make it harder to win the general election. It doesn't mean I don't want Trump held accountable. It doesn't mean I don't want him out of office. But if we focus on impeachment, and she talks more about this later, you are just gonna, that's all everybody's gonna focus.
Yeah.
That's all everybody's gonna focus on. And one person in the audience said, but hey, some of us, we want to impeach him. We're not asking you to run on it. We're not asking the candidates to run on it, but we want some sort of accountability because it's gonna set a precedent. And if we have someone worse, then we're not gonna be able to do this to them. And that's a very valid point because it does set a precedent. And yes, he is someone that has done so much, but ultimately, the bigger issue is if we do go in and impeach, first of all, it's not going to happen. Like she said, the Senate's not going to do it.
Not going to cooperate.
But it's going to waste everyone's time, and we're not going to be talking about the issues that everyday Americans are facing. And that's ultimately a bigger concern for us than focusing on that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think the Democratic Party needs to hold themselves accountable before they hold Donald Trump accountable. Clean your own house first, then you can go after somebody else. We have our own fucking election process here that's disgusting, so that's number one. Number two, all we need to do is look back to Bill Clinton. Once they started to impeach Bill Clinton, MoveOn.org and all these other groups, Bill Clinton's approval rating skyrocketed, and it almost assured his popularity rising. So if we do this again, if we try to impeach Donald Trump, we're pretty much surely handing him the next election.
Exactly.
So why make him play the victim? Why prop him up? If you want him out, let's vote him out.
And then after he's out, then by all means we can go after him through the law, and now he doesn't have the protection of the Senate and the protection of everything else. And I think that is one way to do it. And I'm 100% for having Donald Trump be accountable to all the bullshit he's done. But I think this is just going to cause further issues. And like he said, give him the
We got to just change the way moving forward, fam. If we start doing this shit, there's a long laundry list. Because the first person I want in jail is fucking George Bush and George Bush Jr. and his whole administration. Dick Cheney, Wolfowitz. I want them gone. Donald Rumsfeld. I want them gone forever. For what they did, and they got away with it. I don't want to start diving into old stuff. Good, fam. We got more stuff.
So she did say this thing, and I wanted to point it out because she talks about how the importance of not separating foreign policy and domestic policy. Johnny, the next one this Twitter one where she talks about, not the Twitter one, but yeah.
Yes.
Edward Snowden,
this is about
the charges against him stem from this illegal operation that he, in many ways, he's very patriotic. I mean, he let us know, and at great cost.
Yeah.
So you would give him a pardon?
Yeah. Yeah. We've got to address why he did the things the way that he did them. Mm-hmm. And you hear the same thing from Chelsea Manning, how there's not an actual channel for whistleblowers like them to bring forward information that exposes egregious abuses of our constitutional rights and liberties. I remember the very day that I woke up, looked at my phone, started looking through the
that's fine.
That's cool. All right, but fam,
and saw those headlines about how the NSA was mass surveilling all of us. in collecting our phone records, collecting our cell phone records. And I was shocked. So that was something that Snowden uncovered, something that I don't know that even as members of Congress we would have been aware of.
Wow.
So now that we were aware of it, then hey, we can take action to close those loopholes, to change those policies, to protect our civil liberties, to protect our Fourth Amendment constitutional rights as Americans. Was the NSA going to disclose that information voluntarily on their own? Absolutely not. Absolutely
no, we would
not.
have had no idea.
No.
We would have had suspicions, but then again, we'd have tinfoil hats on, and Snowden was the guy that really...
Yeah, exactly. So there's no other way for the American people to get that information.
No, Clapper told us, President Obama's head of, CIA director told us they were not spying on us, the NSA. I think and this is the thing about Snowden. Snowden left a trail. He wanted to get caught. He wanted to let them know, this is me who did this. You know what I'm saying? I'm letting the people know. So he didn't hide. He wasn't trying to be, just profit off this himself. He had to take, refuge in friggin' Russia, for crying out loud. But the NSA has been spying on us for a long, long time. And I love the way, once again, Tulsi's standing out in this too as well. When it comes to Snowden, when it comes to Chelsea Manning, when it comes to our boy Julian Assange, and it's important. And this is the president we need. And anybody who's, I just want to address the burner fans who are hating on Tulsi. Just stop it. Get this through your head. She's getting votes and people, independents, that Bernie will never, ever get, and she's going to be able to give those votes down the road. He needs her to win. The progressives need to stay united, fam. You wrote this in a tweet one time before. You're like, who's united? The establishment. So the progressives, get your shit together and let's unite.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing with Elizabeth Warren. I would love nothing more to think that she's going to unite with Bernie and support him and throw all her support behind him. But I have not seen enough evidence of that. I've actually seen more evidence of her pandering to the Kamala Harris's types. They had a picture together, etc. So one thing I wanted to mention about Elizabeth Warren now. Elizabeth Warren is known for her progressive policies regarding the economics, regarding the banks, regarding the Credit Protection Bureau. And she's also laid out a very progressive education plan, which is one of the things I did highlight about her, that I loved her education plan. I said, I hope Bernie would adopt it. It is a plan. It is nothing that she's put out legislatively, but it was a plan about, student loan forgiveness. However, nobody has been talking about Elizabeth Warren's past with charter schools. And she's not only had pro-charter school positions, she's written about charter schools. So let me kind of go over a little bit.
Fam, you're going to get in trouble.
So Warren's friendliness towards the pro-charter movement was recently documented in a series of tweets by What's Left podcast host Amy Therese. Therese noted that last Friday, a local education figure named Sonia Mehta introduced Warren at a rally in Oakland, California. While the San Francisco Chronicle only described Mehta as a former Oakland school teacher, Mehta is a former policy fellow with Go Public Schools, Oakland. On this blog, Bay Area Public Schools physics teacher Thomas Udican described Go Public Schools Oakland as a 501c3 nonprofit that funnels money to charter school incubation. He also wrote that Go partners with Great Oakland Public Schools and the organization in order to funnel money attributed into mainly school board elections. And aside from this person, she has made pro-charter arguments in her writing. Josh Delaney, who has been her senior education policy advisor for the last 4 years and is a veteran of Teach for America, suggests that the person who has had Warren's ear in the education policy over the last several years is feeding her a pro-charter agenda. So this guy named Chad Schomer, who wrote for Teach for America, he said that organization masquerades as a sort of organization helping educational services to underserviced communities, but is actually promoting a pro-corporate union-busting agenda. And basically, they closed down 49 public schools, the unionized public schools, in an effort to, behind the scenes with the mayor, Emmanuel, open up 52 charter schools to replace these public schools. And these are the people that Elizabeth Warren is being advised by. And nobody has been talking about this. Everybody's been talking about her record with, education and all of that. But just so you guys know, the Walton Family Foundation is the biggest private financier of charter schools. And they make so much money. And they, a 2016 plan unveiled to spending $200 million annually over 5 years on charter schools. This is a Walton family, the assholes that treat their workers like shit in Walmart. And these people are pro-charter schools. And a lot of these people are the same people Elizabeth Warren is consulting with in regards to that. So how am I going to trust Elizabeth Warren on going through her education plan, which I love, if she still hasn't addressed this charter school issue? And this is a domestic issue. I would like to have someone over here. Lauren Steiner says we've been really hard on Elizabeth Warren. I would love to have Lauren here to kind of discuss, why she thinks Elizabeth Warren is a progressive, because I don't necessarily think she's progressive. I think she's left of center. I think she's better than a lot of other candidates, but I don't necessarily put her in the same category as Bernie, like many people are trying to do. She's definitely not in that category. The same in the category of Bernie is Tulsi and Mike Gravel. Well, other than that, like pretty much nobody really falls in that category.
This is something new that you've opened up to my eyes and our audience's eyes out there when it comes to the charter schools and Elizabeth Warren, because I think we were under the impression that she was just pro-student, and that was one of the things she was out there leading as far as squashing debt. But there's a lot more things to look into when it comes to Elizabeth Warren. And once again, I think I've been jostling with the decision. Well, I'm not going to vote for Kamala. There's no way. And I have said I thought that Bernie would make a deal with the establishment and take Kamala. I still don't think that Elizabeth Warren has any chance to win the general election whatsoever. Really, I don't. And anybody who thinks that, you better go look into some foreign policy, because she's awful. And then we see more footprints like this showing up. So I think we should leave it like that. We have a hard out coming soon. We should just do a little quick unpacking. We have an interview with Shahid Buttar, right? Shahid Buttar. This Wednesday, I will be interviewing him. If you don't know him, he ran against Stephen Jaffe, who ran against Nancy Pelosi. He was actually one of the progressives who ran. And the first time I saw him, he was on lead camp. But he split he's running for Congress. So is it 13 or 10? It's Nancy Pelosi's district. This was actually a case, fam, in 2016 where Shahid and Stephen Jaffe split the vote, allowing a Republican to win, get in second place in the jungle primary, and then Nancy Pelosi cakewalked to a victory. And she's going to be impossible to beat as is. He's running again, but there's some confusion in the mix. We're going to talk to him about his decisions in the past and his decisions moving forward. James Aaliyah has been calling. He wants to get on the show with us, talk more about this delegate process that Fam was talking about. And when a lot of you people came on here on Twitter and you ridiculed Fam for her talking her the truth, eat a bag of Richards, because more and more of it is coming to fruition. We're seeing that it's true. The culture of bullying. We even had Kimberly Ellis going on Vice saying that, no, it's not a fair election. And as we look into this, Fam, I was so concentrated with the David Atkins and the ADEM elections that you keep your eye off what's really going on, and that's that California still has a superdelegate-like process, and it's still not giving democracy to the people, and it's only going to hurt us for the future, despite what Christine Pelosi says.
Yes.
What's the show we're going to be on tonight?
It's happening with
Jose.
Yes.
Josue. We're going down to the Orange Curtain, behind the Orange Curtain.
Santa Ana. Yeah, we're going to go and be on It's Happening. If you guys haven't looked it up, it's on Facebook. I'm not really sure anywhere else it's on, but it's on Facebook if you guys want to check it out.
Yeah, and we will be releasing soon in a couple days, hopefully, probably tomorrow. Johnny's almost finishing up this unbelievable, awesome Tulsi Gabbard video showing her support at the KDEM convention in San Francisco. Don't listen to the mainstream media. They weren't where the people were. The Convo Couch, MCSC Network, we were where the people were. For Pasta Jardula
and Fiorella Isabel, thank you for watching. Convo out.
Bye.